Hey everybody, today in this video we're going to be going over adding and subtracting fractions. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, when we're adding and subtracting fractions, okay, it's very easy if we have a common denominator. Okay, so sometimes we'll have a common denominator and we can just go ahead and solve. Other times we're going to need to find a common denominator and change up how that fraction looks. But first, let's just look at if they already give it to us in a common denominator form, such as this problem right here. You have 1/5 plus 2/5. Okay, so the denominators are the same. All right, so when the denominators are the same, the whole has been split into pieces that are the same size. Okay, and if you look over to the right, you can see a little depiction of that. Okay, this 1/5 is the same as this 1/5 here and 1/5 here, right? And when you add those together, you get 3/5. Okay, so fairly simple whenever the denominators are the same. When you add fractions with the same denominator, the denominator of the answer is the same. The size of the pieces do not change when you add them together. Okay, so here are our rules whenever we are adding and subtracting fractions with common denominator. Okay, first, all you have to do is add or subtract the numerators. Okay, so depending on what kind of problem it is, you would either add or you would subtract the numerators. Okay, then you would keep the denominator the same. So we've already talked about that. The denominator just will stay the same. And then the last step will be to simplify if needed. Okay, and we'll do some examples of that as well. So let's look over to our two examples here. We have 1/10 plus 7/10. Okay, well the denominators are the same, so in this case we're just going to move the denominator over here. It's staying the same, and then we just add the 1 and the 7, and of course we get 8. Now, this third step is to simplify. We know that those are both even, so we can divide 2. And then what we do to one, we have to do to the other. So you end up getting 8 divided by 2, which is 4. 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Okay, so that's going to simplify to 4/5. Now, if we take our other example, 7/12 minus 3/12, so this is a subtraction problem. Okay, again, the denominators are the same, so they're going to just keep it as a 12, and then we're going to subtract 7 minus 3 is 4. Now we can simplify because we know that they are both divisible by 4. So if we divide 4 from the numerator, divide 4 from the denominator, and you get 1 on top, and you get 12 divided by 4, which is 3 on the bottom. So this is going to be 1/3. Okay? So that is how we do it if the denominators are already the same. Okay, so now let's look at another instance in which the denominators will be different. Okay, so if they are different, when the denominators of two fractions are different, we cannot combine them with addition or subtraction until we fix them. Okay, we need to fix them by finding a common denominator. Right? We just learned how to do it with common denominators. That was pretty easy, right? So what we want to do is we want to fix these to where they have common denominators as well. That way we can just go in and do what we did last time. Okay? So one way to find a common denominator is to list the multiples of each denominator. Okay? So we're going to find the multiples of each denominator, look for the smallest one that they have in common. So we're going to kind of look at this example right here. It's 2/5 plus 1/2. So as you can see, the denominators are different. So if we start listing the multiples of 5, okay, that would be like 5, 10, 15, 20, and you can keep on going and going, and you can always come back and add more if you don't see one that's common. Okay, and then if we have 2, okay, that's going to be 2, 4, 6, and you kind of keep going until you find one that's common. So far we haven't had one. Oh, and then we stop, and if we have 10, okay, notice we have 10 here, we have 10 here. All right, that's the least common denominator that they have in common. Okay, so by doing that, we can now use 10 as the common denominator. So what we're going to do is we're going to change 2/5 and we're going to change 1/2, not their values, but we're going to change how they look. And we can do that by multiplying them by a fancy form of 1. Okay, because if we know that if we multiply anything by 1, it's going to stay that same number. Okay, so when we rewrite the fractions with the common denominator, all we're doing is we're multiplying them by 1, but in a fancy way, which I'm going to show you here in a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Okay, so let's look at it over here. Let's look at 2/5. Okay, if I want it to have a denominator of 10, what do I do to 5 to get it to a 10? Well, I multiply it by 2, right? And that gave me 10. So I have to do the same thing to the numerator. I have to multiply it by 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 4/10 over there. Notice I multiplied it by 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Well, 2 over 2 is 1, so that's my fancy form of 1 that I used to multiply this one with. Okay, same thing over here. If I'm going from a 2 as a denominator and I want to go to a 10, I'm just multiplying by 5. Okay, so that means I have to multiply by 5 on the top, and that's going to give me 5/10. Okay, so now if you look at these arrows, I now actually have 4/10 and I have 5/10. Now they have the same denominator, which means I can just simply keep the denominator the same, add the numerators, so I have 9, and the last step is to simplify, but as you know, 9/10 is in its simplest form, so we do not have to simplify. Okay? So that is how we solve them when they have different denominators. Okay? So once the fractions are written with the same denominator, you can just combine them and do what we did at the top whenever they were the same. So this right here is denominator. Okay, so our rules for adding and subtracting fractions with different denominators. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite using common denominators. Okay, from there, all we're going to do is either add or subtract. And then what we're going to do at the end is simplify if we have to. Whoops, sorry about that. We're going to simplify if needed. So let's look at a couple of examples. If we look at 1/6 plus 2/9, okay, they obviously have different denominators. So we're going to start listing the multiples for 6, and then we'll list the multiples for 9. Okay, so for 6, you have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. We'll just stop right there. Okay, for 9, you have 9, 18, 27, and I can actually stop because I've already found one. 18 right here. 18 right here. Okay, so that's going to be your least common denominator. So now what we have to do is we have to rewrite each one with an 18 as the denominator. So if you take 1/6 and we want that to have a denominator of 18, well, what did we do to 6 to get to 18? We multiplied it by 3, which means we have to multiply the 1 by 3, and we're going to get 3/18. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite that down here, 3/18. And then let's go ahead and do 2/9, change it. So we want it with an 18. Okay, so we just multiplied it by 2, which means we're going to multiply the top by 2, and we get 4/18. So now we can rewrite them both down here. So now they have the same denominator, which means it's just going to stay the same as an 18, and we just add 3 plus 4 is 7, and that's in its simplest form, so we do not have to multiply. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. We have 9/10 minus 3/4. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and list the multiples for 10. So you have 10, 20, 30. We'll just stop right there. And we'll go for 4. We have 4, 8, 16. Whoops, I skipped one. 12, 16. Whoops. 20. And we found one. Okay. Whoops, wrong button. We want to highlight that, not erase it. Okay, so we have 20 and we have 20. So now all we have to do is change those up to where they have a denominator of 20. Let's start with 9/10. Okay, we want that to equal a 20 as a denominator. Well, from 10 to 20, you just multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply 9 by 2. And we get 18/20. And if we do the same thing with 3/4, we want it to be a 20. We know that from 4 to 20 we multiplied by 5. So we multiply this by 5 and we get 15. So now we'll have 18/20, which the correct way to say that would be 18/20 minus 15/20. The denominators will just stay the same. It'll be a 20. And then we just subtract 18 minus 15 is, of course, 3. And on this one as well, we do not have to simplify because it's in simplest form. Okay? All right. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope y'all were able to learn a little bit about this. For the practice section, we're just going to do that in class. Okay? So hold off on that. You can try it if you'd like, but we're going to go over that part in class. All right. Thank y'all for watching.